Well, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to a hot and windy afternoon here in South Africa. We are on Djuma and Arathusa private game reserves, and for those of you who are tuned into the Djuma waterhole camera right now, you may well have been looking at the very same buffalo that we opened the shots on. We're here at Gowrie Dam, and for those of you who are new, firstly welcome. And secondly, it is also important to know that while we aren't live on safari as we are now, there's a couple of waterhole cameras we've got dotted about, and it's worth tuning in. There's some great action in between the drives on these waterhole cameras. So, as I said, it's hot and windy, and that's why we decided to start here at the waterhole. And that's the Djuma waterhole cam there. It's just got a temporary roof on it until we get a housing fixed that's currently in repairs. So it's situated up in that tree and it overlooks the Gowrie Dam. We're going to continue onto the dam wall slowly and see what else we can see from there. And it certainly is going to be a long and hard winter for the herbivores. We haven't got as much rain as we would have liked to this summer, or as the amount we usually do. And therefore we're experiencing already drier conditions that are more typical for the middle of winter, and we're only just going into the winter now. So the summer rains have come and gone, and it is, like I say, going to be a hard time of the year for the herbivores out here. Good for the carnivores because they get to prey on the weakening animals, but it certainly already feels quite harsh and dry. And there's a lot of animals that are coming through to the water holes, especially during the hotter parts of the day. Now you'll notice there's a lot of birds on this big male buffalo's back. You can tell he's a male because where his horns meet in the center, there's no hair and there's a large bulge of bone and keratin. They are immensely powerful animals, and you can see how even as he wades through into the dam here, they certainly command a lot of respect out here from the predators, the lion, who are the main predator that will try and attack them, as well as us humans when we're walking around on foot. Here's a lot more of the oxpeckers. You'll notice a lot of them have got their beaks open, and that's again an indicator of how hot it is. That's how they keep cool. They don't sweat like we do, so they're essentially panting. And these are the red-billed oxpeckers. They've got a bright red bill and that yellow ring around their eye. Their cousin, the yellow-billed oxpecker, also has a little bit of red, half yellow, half red on the beak, but no yellow ring around the eye. This is awesome. The buffaloes often don't tolerate them, especially when they get close to the ears. So let's see what happens here. And the ears are a hot spot for the ticks, the ectoparasites that this oxpecker is looking for. It looks like it just got one there. So huge help to the buffalo as it removes possibly hundreds of ticks per day. Adult oxpeckers have been known to feed on between 100 and 200 ticks per day, and those are the fully grown ticks. The smaller ticks they can feed on even more. Now, a question that's been commonly asked and we haven't really responded to too much is that how long will we be going on here for? And that's a great question. We're going to be continuing the Safari Live experience for as long as possible, and as soon as we do know any more information of when future projects may be unfolding, we will certainly keep you updated. But I'm happy to know that we're going to be continuing here on Djuma and Arathusa for the coming months, and it really is going to be wonderful seeing the transition into this dry winter. And like I say, we'll keep you updated as soon as we know what's going on with future projects. The whole team at the moment is really on a high and happy to be out here, and happy to say that there's absolutely no plans in this operation coming to an end, and I'm very happy about that. I feel like every single person involved in this operation, including you the viewers, are incredibly fortunate, because who would have thought it would be possible to join on a live safari from the comforts of your own home, and not only join in but interact with us. For those of you who are new, I will mention again, this is happening this very second in Africa and getting streamed. How exactly, I'm not too sure, but there's some super technology around these days that gets you this picture instantaneously across the world. And we can also answer questions. So if there is anything of interest that you would like to know about what we do out here, please feel free to send questions through to myself, Scott. And to do that, you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Now, you would never believe it, but that is a very large animal. We'll wait a moment until it pokes its nose out the water again. And you may have just got a glimpse of what looked like almost a little rocks poking out of the water. Now, there's a few animals that it could be. We'll wait for it to pop up. There's something in the background there, but that looks like it could just be a log that would deceive us, or we would possibly think that would be a crocodile, but it's just a few rocks. Oh, there it is. So, you wouldn't believe that all you see there is the two tiny nostrils, or rather large nostrils actually, of a hippopotamus. And they don't float, so it will be standing at a depth where it's easy enough for it just to tilt its head back and poke its nostrils out in order to breathe. And this one seems to be taking a breath about every 20 seconds, I've noticed, but they can hold their breath for about 3 to 5 minutes. You'll notice the wind, you'll probably hear it, as well as see how it's kicking up some ripples on the dam. And what this wind means is it could be bringing weather. There don't seem to be any clouds on the horizon, but changing pressure cells will cause this. And what we can expect the animals to do now is, the predators may be more inclined to be hunting, because with all this wind, their approach visually will be blurred, as there'll be lots of movements of the leaves and grasses blowing. But also the audio of them approaching, the noise that they would be making creeping up on any of their prey, would be muffled by the noise of leaves rustling in this wind. So good weather for predators to hunt in, but the prey animals certainly feel vulnerable, so they heighten their senses and can often be quite nervous in this windy weather. So that's what we could expect from the behavior of the animals this afternoon. Now we are going to continue from here and probably head straight off to another waterhole. We'll slowly make our way there. We're probably about 15 minutes away, hoping to find some other animals, possibly some elephants. But it's important to know that those are only the initial plans for the afternoon. Later on, we've got some really exciting prospects. Now, for those of you who didn't join Mark on this morning's safari, he did a great job in tracking down 2 male lions as well as a single lioness. And the single lioness seems to be kind of playing a bit of hard to get with this big male, who's very interested in mating with her. There's obviously been a scuffle in the past between the two males that could well be brothers, and the one is dominant over the other, and the dominant one is really interested in this lioness, but she doesn't seem to be easing into him very easily. And lioness may do this because they would like to rather attract as many males to them as possible, that way ensuring that only the biggest and strongest one that competes for her will get to be the father of her next cubs to be. And that's obviously a great way in ensuring that only the strongest genes make it through. So she could just be kind of seeing what her options are at this stage, but who knows what her behavior will be like this afternoon. Mark was, and all of you that joined, were very fortunate in that the lions vocalized a few times, and if there's one thing, I've said it once but I'll say it again, if there's one thing that I could show guests on safari during their whole stay, it would be to hear lions roaring from close by. So that happened this morning, and we've actually been fortunate on a few drives over the last week or two. So with a bit more luck, and I know we're getting a bit greedy, but with a bit more luck we will have the lions calling again this evening. I don't think they're going to be active very soon. It is hot, like I say, and lions don't like it when it's too hot. They are animals of leisure when they can be, and they will in all likelihood only begin to get active, I'm guessing, in around about 2 hours time at around 5 p.m. as it begins to cool. But I'm going to keep tabs on what's going on the radio. I've got an earpiece on and I'm linked into the final control room, who I communicate with in order to make sure the broadcast's going well and that the signal's coming through clearly, and also the game drive vehicles. Now, there's a lot of different lodges in this area, and the safari companies that bring their guests here and come out and have a good time just like we're having, and we all communicate with one another and share knowledge, information on animals, what they're up to. So I'm sure there will be some people heading to the lion a little bit earlier on, and as soon as we get an update or an inkling that they're going to be on the move, that's when we'll dash in. It's never an easy decision planning a game drive, because we do never know exactly what the animals will do. We've only got ideas of what may happen, but they tend to often prove our predictions wrong. Anyway, we've got a good idea of how their behavior works, and it might be worth investing our time elsewhere looking for something else exciting. Who knows, we could find a leopard walking down this road rather than going to the lions, when in all likelihood there's not going to be too much action there. I must be honest, the dam we are going to, or the waterhole, is my favorite waterhole on the property. It's beautiful scenically, but also we've had a number of memorable sightings there. Now, that's not to say that incredible stuff doesn't happen around any waterhole, or lots of the waterholes. It's just that we've been there when certain interesting events have unfolded. Watching Quarantine and a hyena basically co-feed on a hyena in Yarnacle was very interesting. And Quarantine is a young male leopard who we think managed to catch an Inyala. It's a medium-sized antelope. It was either him that caught it or the crocodile in the dam, so no one's certain, but the crocodile also came out and tried to steal some of the meat from the leopard, and shortly after the crocodile did that, there was also a few hyenas on the scene, and the leopard just lay about 2 meters away from the hyena as it fed on the kill. So they didn't fight with one another, they simply took turns in feeding, which was really interesting to see. It's something that does happen, but is not very often documented. So, a lot of you will also be wondering who's on camera this afternoon, and we teamed up with Andrew, so good to be out with him again, with Stefan now in the camp, which has been a wonderful addition to the team, and looking forward to spending more time with him, as I'm sure a lot of you will be. But because there have been quite a few presenters on the ground, we've been having big gaps between drives, so nobody's going anywhere. It's just there's more of us. So haven't been out with Andrew for a while now, which is good. And Nikki's in the final control. So those are the team working for Wild Earth this afternoon, if you can call it that. We all, like I said earlier, have a wonderful time out here and all realize how lucky we are to be exploring and adventuring in a place like this. Well, the road I'm about to go down now may have one or two patches of bad signal. It shouldn't cut out, but if it is a bit shaky, don't go anywhere. As soon as we get up onto the rise close to the waterhole, which we'll be at in about 5 minutes, the signal should improve. I'm just taking some time to make sure there's no interesting tracks that could potentially lead us to animals. And if you were wondering where I was looking, I'm looking on the road. It's essentially our equivalent of a newspaper. We don't get through newspapers, but here in the bush we have an incredible array of information on what the animals have been up to the night. There are a lot of nocturnal animals that aren't necessarily nocturnal during the night. Podcast. Some days we manage to sneak through this road without a problem, and others, as we've just experienced, it cuts out. So apologies for that. You didn't miss out on anything, thankfully, and if anything, you've come back at a good time, because in a few more corners time we will be arriving at the waterhole. And I've got a feeling that we're going to be in luck. As I was saying a little bit earlier, we are really privileged in the information that we can read into every morning and afternoon when we head out. The roads provide open canvases for the animals to leave footprints on, and these footprints can really help us in not only finding animals, but understanding what animals may have done while we weren't there. So it is very important for us to drive slowly, check the roads for signs of different animals, especially the animals that are harder to come by, and without actually following their footprints it would be near impossible to find anything out here. It is certainly one of our biggest clues. And on top of what we may find on the ground, on the roads and the pathways, we sometimes also get some audio updates from the animals that will alarm call birds and monkeys and antelope when they see predators. Well, even though I was feeling lucky, and there doesn't appear to be anything here, I still feel lucky. It's not over yet, and we're just going to sneak down to another little corner of this dam. And find what it is. Oh, that'll do. If you see straight in front of us on the water's edge, there's a large terrapin, and also on the log behind it there's another two. And we don't often get to see them out the water sunning themselves. They tend to be quite shy, and as we get closer to the dams or water holes, they may slide off their little perches into the water. As it appears one may be thinking about doing now. Oh, yeah. It saw us. Time to get out of there. So it's essentially a freshwater turtle, the terrapin. They're carnivorous and feed on just about anything. Oh, there's another one. Let's see how long. It's interesting how the two that were further away were the first two to leave. As I was saying though, they are carnivorous and will feed on small birds, fish, carrion, the parasites on buffalo. Oh, there it saw us. Now it's panicking. There we go. Well, I'm surprised that one's made it this far in life, because it took it a while to see us. Oh, can you hear a lot of parrots in the trees? Now, as I stop, you will also hear them screeching, very characteristic call of a parrot. And what I'm hoping is that they may come down to drink. It's one of, oh sorry Andrew, it's one of the best times for us to see these parrots, because they typically sit in the canopies of the trees and therefore often far away from us and difficult to zoom in on. It sounds like they're in the marula tree that Andrew is busy panning through. I haven't seen any, but it certainly sounds like that's where they are. They're small parrots about the size of a dove. Well, as I was saying earlier, even though we can read into signs that are visible on the ground, on pathways, on tracks, even on the trees where animals may have rubbed up against trees, there's sometimes clearly visible tracks or signs that can lead us to animals, but again there's the audio, and it's important just to sit quiet like we are now and not only listen to the parrots, but also listen to any other potential animals that may give us a clue as to what may be going on in our surroundings.
I think I found one.
Okay, is that a parrot?
It's a bird, I think. Parrot, I don't know.
I think that could well be one. I'm trying to find it though in my binoculars, and for some reason I think you might have a different angle to me.
It's in the trees at about 12:30.
Oh, there we go. That's 100%. Andrew's nailed it. Well done. I was in the wrong tree. So they weren't sitting in the marula tree, they're sitting in a knobthorn tree. And well spotted, Andrew. As I said, they tend to hide away high up on those big trees. But if they came down to drink, that would certainly north of us in the Kruger National Park. There was a crocodile at this dam, and it hasn't been seen for a few days. Mark tells me he saw tracks of a crocodile heading down the Mulwati drainage, which is the biggest riverbed that runs through our property, and it could well be that same crocodile that's left this dam, which is a pity. It only spent a couple of weeks here before heading off, and they are such wonderful animals. to view. We had some really interesting sightings actually. We saw it eating a few fish. It is not a small operation. I wonder if we're not going to find a snake slithering around on this hot afternoon. There still has been quite a lot of activity of snakes. We sadly don't get to see them very often, but we do see their tracks crossing the roads. Again, update we get from the ever updating daily news. It can be extremely interesting because you may drive down a road and 10 minutes later come back down the same road, or know that somebody's driven there just ahead of you, and you may notice a snake would have slithered across the road between when yourself and that other vehicle may have been there. It's just minutes apart, and even if you get out and look, you often don't find anything. So they tend to steer away from us, which is a good lesson to learn, I guess, because it does cast the message that snakes aren't actually looking for trouble, and where they can, they avoid us. But obviously it's easy for them to detect us coming because we're in a vehicle, and they may feel the vibrations long before we get there. It's just that when we may creep up on them or actually try to harm them, that they may feel that the best option for them is to strike out in defense. Anyway, thankfully that doesn't happen very often, and as I was saying, the snakes are still active, not nearly as active as they were in the height of the summer. Prey animals, the antelope, they've got to be high. Go. Kathy in Ohio, good afternoon and welcome on board with us. I hope you're having a great afternoon. Well, Kathy is interested to know on an update on the Birmingham Coalition of Male Lions. And for those of you who have not seen these lions on our previous broadcasts, it's a bunch of 5 males. They have clanned together and are now going about be able to have a quick squiz, see what the lion are up to, which I can almost guarantee you that they'll be sleeping, but hopefully I'm wrong. And there's another waterhole nearby after we head past the lions, so just to keep you updated on my thoughts. Like I say, in this windy weather, the animals tend to hide out, and I'm hoping the only thing that will draw them out in this dry and hot day will be the water. it's interesting, we've just got a question through from Tony all the way in the Netherlands. Afternoon, Tony, and welcome. And Tony's interested to know which snake is the last snake that I would like to encounter here in South Africa. And as I've received this question all the way from the Netherlands, I've noticed that there's a snake skin dangling in this little bush behind us, and I'm going to jump out and grab onto it and have a closer look and actually see if we can be able to identify what snake it was. So Tony, I will get back to your question in a second, but who knows, maybe this in fact will be the snake that I would least like to see. Okay, now it's not easy, but you will probably notice it doesn't look like a very large eye, and that if it had have been a large eye, it would have led me to believe that it was a snake called the boom, a tree snake. The fact that it's a small eye and the fact that the skin is quite broken up is going to make it very difficult for myself to identify it, but certain experts would be able to look at the way the scales form and certain combinations of scales both on the top and the belly of the snake, and you can actually tell what snake fairly accurately it was just from looking at the skin. This one I won't be able to though, and I'm just going to put it back on the tree where I found it. But back to Tony's question, the snake that I would least want to see in South Africa would probably be the black mamba. Now, the black mamba is a notorious snake because it's got a highly neurotoxic venom, so it attacks your nervous system and can therefore often shut down your organs, and therefore you will die. So they do cause deaths in South Africa, and probably more than any other snake. They are also very quick. They can be 3 meters long and about this thick. They're sinister looking. They're a gunmetal grey. They're not actually pitch black in coloration. It's actually the inside of their mouth that's black, and that's why they've been called the black mamba. And yeah, that would be the snake I would least want to have to deal with. I have only on one occasion had to remove a black mamba from a room at a camp that I was working at in Tanzania, but that thankfully was not a very large one. It was about 1.5 meters in length, and we also had the proper tools and special extended tongs that help you to, or forks that allow you to clamp onto the snake gently without hurting it, but to be able to relocate them. And that was a nerve-wracking experience. So actually, I guess I have come face to face with the black mamba, but it was only once. Other snakes, if you treat them fairly gently and you do have the right tools and knowledge, you can relatively safely remove them when you need to from areas where there may be people or kids running around, so you certainly don't want snakes there, but you also don't want to necessarily kill the snake. So if you are ever in that situation, you can call people that come, and they're experts. They're the people that get brought out to the safari camps to teach the guides how to catch snakes, as it is something you have to do at most camps where you work in case there's a snake in your guest's room. But thankfully the black mambas don't like the infrastructure too much, and it's only been the one occasion that I've had to see one. Another funny story though, Tony, about a black mamba. It was here in the Sabi Sands, and it was early on in my guiding career. The tracker that I was working with was an absolute character, and for those of you who don't know, the tracker is the person who actually sits on the vehicle, and there'll usually be a seat here with a backrest, and he sits here for the game drive and can look down at the tracks on the roads, focus on the task at hand, reading the newspaper. And the tracker that I was working with, his name was James, extremely knowledgeable. He had been working in the bush for over 20 years, and we were following the tracks of a young male leopard. We actually didn't have guests. We went out on a tracking team to help find animals for the other game viewers, and following tracks of a young male leopard, probably the same age of Quarantina and Djuma at the moment. And we got to an area where the road was quite hard and rocky, and therefore couldn't see the tracks easily, but we knew they would probably continue in that same direction. So we were walking fairly quickly to get onto a sandier patch of road, and all of a sudden James said, "Stop!" And I stopped, and there was a black mamba just ahead of us, probably 20 meters away. So there was plenty of space. We weren't concerned for our lives. There was no danger. There was a lot of space between us, and it actually had no idea that we were there. But it was big. Its tail was one side of the road, and its head was in the grass on the other. And we needed to carry on with our business, so he just decided to chase the snake away. So he picked up a small pebble and threw it in the direction of the snake. And excuse me, as soon as the stone left his hand, it was small, I knew that it was going to be a good throw, and it bounced once, and on the second bounce it hit the snake. And the snake got such a fright that it started slithering wildly, and they're incredibly fast, straight towards us. It didn't know where the stone had come from. We were on a slight decline, so the snake's easiest and fastest route was downhill towards us. And myself and James took off into the bush, laughing hysterically at one another. And then thankfully, again, just like he warned me for the snake, he then grabbed me and said, "There's the leopard." And the leopard that we were looking for had watched this whole event unfold from the comforts of a marula tree nearby. So that was one of my fondest memories, and I guess craziest stories from all my years out here. Getting chased by a mamba into a leopard. Thankfully, both of them didn't have any problem with us in the end. And the other game drive vehicles came over and had a wonderful sighting of actually both the snake and also the leopard. The snake slithered up into a tree. We kept an eye on it, and like I say, we don't see snakes very often. So a lot of the guests coming in to see the leopard would stop on the way in and get a beautiful sighting of a black mamba coiled up in a tree. That doesn't happen very often out here. We have seen a black mamba a few times here, Tony. I've seen it definitely twice, possibly 3 times. All up on the quarantine clearings, which is close to our camp, and fairly sizable, about 2.5 meters. Possibly the same one, but hard to say. They were both very brief glimpses, and they're very shy and secretive snakes, typically the mambas. Oh no. This is a pity. This is a male leopard tracks. They're heading in the wrong direction. I'm just going to have a check though, even though the road on our left is our eastern boundary. I just want to have a check to see if the tracks do cross over. And that way I can let the vehicles who do search this area that there could well be a leopard nearby. So even though immediately it may not help us, it's going to help the others. And who knows, maybe that leopard, if they find it, may head back. And then they'd get a hold of us on the radio and let us know that there's a leopard coming towards us. So I'm just going to have a quick look to see if it does cross. But basically, it was coming along this road and has veered towards us over here. So I think it may well be gone. So, I cannot see any tracks actually crossing the road, but what I do know is that the road to our right, behind us where the leopard has come from, is not a very busy road and may not necessarily have been driven on this morning. If it had been driven on this morning, it would have meant that this leopard has moved after the vehicles have been there, because the tracks are on top of vehicle tracks. Now, this other road to our left here, where it was heading towards crossing, is a much busier road. I know it would 99% chance would have been driven today, and probably more than once. So any indication of that leopard crossing this road would have been ridden over, and all the dust and sand from as the vehicle passes would have filled any signs of it crossing. So that also helps us to not only establish that, or importantly it helps us to establish that the tracks are probably from last night, not midday. That means it could be very far off from here. I'll still let the guys know. As a lot of you who would have joined this morning's drive would know, I was not out on drive, so I do not know exactly what was going on to the tiny details of roads that individuals may have driven. I did get in-depth updates from Mark then in terms of what he saw and what went on with his drive. You may have noticed how I slid my foot around some of the tracks, and this is to make it easy for other vehicles to notice them, as that's a very distinct mark and noticeable mark in the road. It also just lets guys know that people have already assessed those tracks. And I'd be willing to hazard a guess as to who that leopard may be. Now, I could very well be wrong, but we do get a good idea of where the animals are moving. And not only that, but also who exactly they are. Now, there's a young male leopard called Quarantine that's been lingering around these areas over the last week or so. There's another male, I guess it could be, called Bahuti, but we've only seen him on our property once. He typically spends more time to the south, but also a young male. So judging from the size of the track as well as the area, we can fairly accurately establish at least that it's a young male, not a large male. And he walked all the way down this road. His tracks continue going in the opposite direction, but he has walked down this road a long distance. Just a few minutes until we get to the next waterhole, and that is the waterhole where the lion are resting, or at least they were resting there this morning. I would be extremely surprised if they're not there this afternoon, especially on a hot day like this. And they will be, just as myself and Andrew, looking forward to the sun to drop a little bit lower down towards the horizon and let things start cooling off a bit. I think that's when we can start expecting some more action, and the bush will then become alive, I'm hoping. Andrew spotted some vervet monkeys. I wonder where the best spot is. I think there might be one here. On the floor. Oh, yeah. There's quite a few in this tree, and I didn't see one of them, so thanks Andrew very much for spotting them. Well, this is a young vervet monkey that you're looking at here. Oh, and it's gone back to sleep, so this gives you an idea of the conditions we're in at the moment. It is hot and the animals are sleepy, and if a vervet monkey is asleep, I can almost assure you the lion are almost in a coma. Let me see if I can reposition, because the one that's sleeping actually is very cute. But I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get the angle. Let's try though.
Oh, that's quite good.
Well, that's as good as it's going to get, but that's one comfortable monkey if I've ever seen one. Oh, there's one right here, even better. Andrew and I both spotted one at the same time here. Far closer by. Also looking very relaxed. That is a serious pose he's striking there. You can almost tell by the look on their face that they're not happy with this hot weather, and they're also possibly a little bit concerned already with this dry winter, or abnormally dry winter that we're heading into.
There's another one in this tree up here.
In this area, it's been told that, or it's been kind of noted that there's almost like a 7-year cycle. And in that 7-year cycle, there will be good weather, good rainy weather for 7 years, and then potentially a drier year. And it's around 7 years now, so it does kind of fit in with the cycles or trends of drought weather. That's a big male you can see sitting up there, possibly the dominant male of the troop. And we're just going to pan around to the other individual that's changed his position now. And you could say it's almost kind of some yoga pose, I'm not sure. But nothing to worry about. He's not the dominant male yet, but he is a little male, and who knows where he will end up one day. He will have to leave the troop, but not for a while. Judging by its size, it could well have been born around November or December. Okay, well, I've just been contacted by Aubrey, who's on another vehicle asking for an update, so I'm just going to have a quick chat with him. Good afternoon, Aubrey. It's just myself out so far, and no updates. I'm about to arrive at Twin Dams, so I'll let you know about the Madoda and Gala there. Okay, copy, will do, Orbs. Haven't seen any sign of them this afternoon. So, Aubrey this afternoon is hoping to find some giraffe, as am I, but there's not many giraffe in this area, especially at this time of the year. There don't seem to be many hanging around. And that's a good example of how we will communicate with one another and share information so that we can all see as much as possible out here. Now, I was speaking about listening to messages that animals may be letting out and that we may read into. And these vervet monkeys are certainly one of the loudest and most useful reporters that we have out here. We can hear their alarm call, which I'll just make gently now, even though they probably won't react to it. I don't want them to think that there's any threat. So I'm just going to make their noise quickly that we need to listen out for, and it goes something like this. But we can hear it from many kilometers away, probably a mile or two away, depending on the conditions and terrain. And from their calls we can often be led towards leopards and lion, but in this area we very often get informed of leopard by these animals. And because they're so often up in trees, there's great vantage points for them to spot leopard from. Now, you may be wondering what this little monkey's doing here. And it's actually trying to chew on small pieces of crystallized gum. And as they keep doing this, the trees will keep seeping the gum, and that way they can keep coming back and sustainably harvest small amounts of this crystallized and often sugary gum. And that's a good sign. Waking up from a little midday siesta and snacking on some little crystallized sweets. And baboons will also do it. We've noticed baboons doing it on a marula tree the other day. This is a knobthorn acacia. So interesting to know that they will harvest the sap from different trees. Awesome, look at this. That was incredible. It was a great indication of how agile and how comfortable they are in the trees, even when they are this young. This, like I say, would probably only be about 3 or 4 months old. And we noticed an influx of babies over the summer, and it is typically the season that we will find most of the baby monkeys, and also antelope in this area. As well as the birds, it's the baby season, the summer. Now you'll notice he's feeding on the seed pods from this acacia tree. So not only the gum, but at this time of the year, the seed pods are also a delicacy. Now I guess this little act that we're witnessing here could very well be the germination of another acacia tree, the initial steps thereof. And it's so important for the various animals to feed on the fruits and seeds of the various trees in order to help disperse the seeds throughout this area. There's constant growth out here, and it's so important for all the animals that there is this constant growth, because animals like elephants will come through and knock over big trees, making space for new ones. And when the new ones grow, they may be edible to certain animals that they will no longer be edible to when they grow up. So it's an important cycle that needs to be continued and everlasting. And that little monkey was helping disperse some acacia seeds across the bushveld. Well, they really are striking some serious poses. You could almost get a vervet monkey calendar shoot, and I'm sure a lot of you will be firing away with your screenshots this afternoon. We don't get to see the monkeys too often, and they're very seldom this relaxed or this lethargic. So we're getting spoiled with some great images of them. Yep, the youngster's on the move again. It seems to be the most lively of the whole troop, and Andrew just spotted it on the move. Let's see what it does next. Now, bearing in mind that this is a thorn tree with lots of hooked thorns on it, it's incredible that they don't ever get snagged. Oh, it's found another seed pod. Here we go. Sorry, last station reading you 2 out of 5, but try again. Copy that, thanks. We've just got a question through from Lynn on Twitter. Good afternoon, Lynn, and welcome to the monkey tree. Now, Lynn is interested to know whether this is an entire troop that we can see in the tree, or whether it may be a small portion of the troop and the rest of the troop could be elsewhere. Hard to say, Lynn, but there don't need to be in this area huge quantities of monkeys in an individual troop, and from what I've noticed there have been anywhere between 10 and 20, and I'm sure that there are about 10 in this tree. We probably haven't shown you all of them because there's a lot of obscured branches that we cannot see. Let me count now quickly how many I can see. 1, 2, 3. Oh no, this isn't going well. I can only count 3, but I know there's more in there than that. How many can you... Oh, I can see a 4th in the fork. 1 fork. 5th. 1 on this side. 6. There could be more nearby, Lynn. There aren't too many, so it's a good observation from you. But troop sizes will vary greatly on the area that you're in, and just the luck of that specific troop on the day. Troops will, just like prides of lion, will increase and decrease over the years. Well, it appears that this little youngster's come up to say hello to us. It's now the closest monkey to us, and it's almost as if it knows it's playing along with the game. And it's found another seed pod, as you'll notice. You'll also notice all the hooked thorns on the branches that he's holding on to. You'll also notice he's actively fishing out just the seeds, not eating the pod that they come in. And that long tail will certainly help in their arboreal escapades and keeping balance. They don't use them as a prehensile limb very commonly, but have been known to be able to wrap their tail around the branch to a degree. Other monkeys will use it commonly, but the vervet monkeys, not that I've seen. They're the only monkey we get in this area, and in other parts of South Africa you do get a few other species, but this is the only monkey that we'll see here. But other primates that we could expect to see would be baboons, and just like these monkeys, they also spend their days foraging for food. Whereas there's also a nocturnal primate, which doesn't really look like a monkey, but it is a primate nonetheless, and that's a bush baby, and we've been seeing those around a little bit after dark, but it's very often just a fleeting glimpse. Off to the next seed pod he goes. Okay, well, we are going to leave this troop of monkeys, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful sighting. Thanks very much, Andrew, for spotting them. It's been the first major sighting we've had, other than the start at Buffelshoek Dam, and there's a few old buffalo bulls there. And he's got another interesting pose. This one's certainly been the poser of the day. Yes, you. Okay. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that sighting. Like I say, it's very often that they're moving too quickly for us to really show you good images of them. But on this hot and windy afternoon, the animals, I feel, will be fairly lethargic until things cool down. And in this scenario, it worked out greatly in our benefit, because we got to see some interesting angles on those monkeys that we don't often get to see. Now, even though those monkeys seemed quite lethargic this afternoon and cute, they can be sly and cunning at the same time. We've had our camp kitchen raided a couple of times, and just like us, they like sweet and tasty things, so they typically take all of our treats when they do manage to break into the kitchen. So we have to be very vigilant with making sure all the doors and windows are closed in the kitchen. Interesting. I see some impala up ahead standing in the road. And we're very close to the dam where the lion are now. It looks like these impala may be heading in the direction of where Mark left these lion this morning. So we'll get up there in a second. We'll have a closer look. It's a very small item of prey for a lion, very quick, which doesn't make it easy for lions to catch. Important to always scan the riverbeds, because one day we're going to find a leopard in one of them, as we have in the past. It's always good to double check, but nothing there this time. So as I was saying, lion will typically try and avoid trying to catch prey that they know they'll battle to catch. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Fine, you?
Very good. Have a great afternoon, guys. Do you know about throwing gala here?
Just the other side.
Yeah.
They're just on the other side of the wall.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're heading
in there now.
We're going to head there now.
Yeah, apparently I think it's 1 mile and 2 females.
Okay, cool.
The one big mile went north this morning.
Okay. Thanks very much. We'll see you later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
So, some other people out on safari enjoying their afternoon. So, as I was saying, it's not likely that the lion will actively go after these impala, especially in the daytime, but it certainly will be interesting to see what happens if the impala head close to the lion. Now, the lion are on our right, the impala are all around us. And I'm just going to have a quick look here. This is a bachelor herd of impala, and we are getting into the rutting season. So there's a strong chance that these males may start to display and start fighting with one another, chasing one another around. In the meantime, though, this one seems to be getting ready for battle, getting itself groomed and gleaned by some more red-billed oxpeckers, the same birds that were on the buffalo a little bit earlier. I've got an incredible ability to cling on to the impala, as you can see, and it's got specially designed foot structure for that. It's 2 of its toes will point forward and 2 will point back, just like a woodpecker, whereas most birds you see have got 3 toes in the front and 1 at the back. Oh, look at this impala just in front of us. Interesting, it's got very white spots on its rump. So that's an indicating feature that sets it apart from the rest. And I haven't noticed this one. I've seen another one with a white spot on its back, but not quite that speckled coloration. Now I'm interested to see, there's a few of these impala beginning to run about in excitement, and they may start building up the tension and testosterone and potentially chase one another around. Like I said, it is the beginning of the rutting season, and we've heard it and seen it just on a few occasions so far where they'll chase one another around, letting off a loud burping, gurgling roar. Just gonna, okay, now we can get a better idea of what's going on, because here we can see not only the impala but also another animal. So Andrew's going to slowly zoom in on what we think could be something of interest to all of us. Oh, left a bit, and then slowly in. There we go. Now, that may appear to be like a bush, that dark shadow in the middle, but it is the large head of a big male lion. Now I wonder where the lioness could be, and she could well be more inclined to stalking these impala than the big male would be. But again, it is hot and very bright sunshine, so the lion could well be fast asleep. What I'm going to do is just carry on and have a closer look at the lion, just to make sure the lioness is there, not busy stalking these impala. The impala also don't seem to be performing as much as I would have liked them to have. I was hoping that they were going to chase one another around. Like I say, it's not quite the full rutting season yet, and they're just beginning to warm up. The next full moon is often used as an indicator for the rutting season, or a starting point for the rutting season. Now this is interesting. No, it's not that interesting. I thought that the lioness had moved off, but she's just ahead of us, lying beyond the other male lion. So the one in front of us, you'll see, is, like I imagined, comatose, and the one just behind him and beyond him is the lioness that's been playing hard to get. She did have her foot up a second ago, but you can just see a tawny color there and her stomach slowly breathing in and out. So those two are the potential lovebirds, but she has not given in to the male yet. Then this individual on the right is the not so fortunate individual who is bystanding this romantic getaway. He's a bystander, and he won't let the dominant male between the two of them out of sight, but why I'm not exactly sure, because he has accepted defeat, and that is why he's distanced himself. If he got any closer to this lioness, the other male lion would confront him, and there will occasionally be confrontations. They have to happen every now and then in order to establish who actually is boss. But once that has happened, it won't be a while until less dominant male would try his luck again. So it's just a healthy respect, which makes sense because he obviously respects this lion for a reason, and is obviously not as powerful as him. So even though they are partners in the same coalition, when ladies get involved, it's every man for himself. I'm sure it won't be long until these impala see the lion. The wind at the moment is predominantly in the lion's favor. It's blowing from the impala towards the lion. So they won't be smelling the lion, but like I say, unless an impala almost stood on top of a lion in the daytime, it would be very difficult for the lion to catch it. And I'd say that in terms of this specific scenario where there's two big males and one lioness. Big males can and will hunt. Don't be fooled. They can certainly hunt when they need to, but naturally they're going to target bigger, more dangerous prey to bring down, like buffalo. That's more suited to their build. I'm just going to creep up and have a look at what's going on at this dam, and then continue on to another waterhole. before returning here a little bit later. Leaving the position of these Madoda and Mafazingala twin dams, they are lying up. Now, apologies, I know you didn't get the best views of the lion there, but we just have to be patient. We will return here later, and there will be very little that would prevent me wanting to return to this, because we have the prospect of hearing these lions vocalize this evening. The fact that they were vocalizing this morning is a good indicator, and if we're exceptionally lucky, we will get to hear it and see it again. But as you could tell from their behavior, it doesn't look like they're going to be doing anything for a while, and once it does cool down, I'm guessing in about an hour or so we may start seeing some changes in their behavior, but until then, let's head off and look for something else. There is so much going on here, it's just a matter of finding it, which can sometimes be tricky, but it is part of the adventure to simply drive around and see what's out there. It changes from day to day, but in general we do get absolutely spoiled. Andrew, yes. Is there anything in specific that you would like to do this afternoon, or go and check? Are you feeling lucky? Oh, before Andrew answers this question, it's important to know that the cameramen are often the individuals who suggest where we should go and look for the animals when we find them, and or spot the animals just finding them wherever we are. So it's important every now and then to incorporate them in the decision making, because they have a way of choosing the right things. It's an uncanny cameraman ability. So Andrew, I'll let you think about things, but I mean, you could even just let it be left or right at the next fork. I'm happy either way.
The problem is, before the drive I said to you we should go find elephants, but we've covered all the dams.
Not yet, we've got one more, so should we go to the next one?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Perfect. So Andrew wants to see elephants, as do I. There haven't been too many elephants moving through the property over the last few days, but it really is phenomenal how often and how quickly that can change. Elephants are animals without territories. They simply move wherever they think they're going to find food and water. Predominantly food though, they can go for a few days without water. And there's a lot of water in this area in general in terms of water holes. So they will be moving depending on where the food is. Now, obviously they've got to cover big distances in order to get to different areas of food, and sometimes they are here and sometimes they aren't. This afternoon I haven't seen any fresh tracks of elephants, so no sign to go on, but there's nothing to say that they've just been simply walking in areas where I have yet to go or see tracks. Hopefully these clouds that Andrew is busy showing you all will cover the sunshine, cool things down and start getting a little bit more life out here